Hello, hello.
Hi,
What's up, folks?
everybody.
Can everyone see and hear us? This is an important question. I'm going to need
Yeah,
someone to say yes in the chat.
to say, yeah, to confirm in the chat, please.
I'm just
Uh,
going to assume that they do at this point.
uh,
All right. We got a yes. This is great. This is
there we
great.
go. Yeah.
Um, our homie Michael, his wife got sick. And we said, leave her behind. Don't even think about it. But he's got a different set of priorities. So it's me and Ree.
uh,
Michael-less, rudderless, really, in a lot of ways.
yeah,
And
it's really hard to do this shit without Michael, actually.
it is. He's our
Michael,
resident nerd.
right, exactly. And I was just thinking about like how, especially for live streams, like Michael's strength, I think, is like talking off the cuff about this stuff, right? Because he just like I don't know. He just knows so much and he like watches it, he
Yeah,
watches the news daily and like really like keeps up to date on this stuff and just has such a
that's
fluency.
our bar for being really smart. Like Mike, he watches the news. He's like
He
reading the
reads.
news.
When Michael sees a headline about the Supreme Court, he clicks on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that we don't. We just wait until Michael tells us what's going
Right.
on
Right,
for the most
exactly.
part. And so
Uh-huh.
we're gonna wing it. Probably go off script like relatively fast. I think. Uh, but we did feel like before this term starts, we had to just like check in and talk about the fact that the corruption is running so rampant and absolutely nothing is happening to
Yes.
change that. And we're just about to like pop into a new term, like nothing's going on at all. And a hot new Clarence Thomas piece dropped like what last week now that we wanted to start with. So like big picture overview of the Clarence Thomas situation for folks who want a refresher. ProPublica has dropped like a series of bombshell pieces reporting on Thomas's corruption over the last few months. Ree, did you drop out or did I just click something? Is Ree gone? Where'd Ree go? Where's Ree? Now I'm texting Ree. All right. I can do this alone. Don't even worry. Don't even worry. Don't even think about Rhiannon. Oh no, is she back?
I'm back. I'm back.
I was just getting in the headspace to do this on my own. I was getting there. I was like building
I
myself up to it.
I heard you in the waiting room being like, I can do it by myself. We're just
I
gonna
can.
do
I
it
was
by
I
myself.
was talking to me. I was talking to me only.
Sorry, I'm here.
All right. So there was like a few months ago, a bunch of reporting about Clarence Thomas's relationship with the billionaire Harlan Crow.
Right.
Crow has like lavished Thomas with $500,000 vacations, use of his private jet, et cetera, et cetera. Not to mention he purchased Thomas's mother's home, which she still lives in, and funded the private schooling of, if I remember correctly, Thomas's grandnephew while
Yeah,
he was
that's right.
in Thomas's care. None of which Thomas disclosed on his legally mandated annual financial disclosures. Just like very shady stuff from a couple of rat bastard creeps, you know?
Not yeah, and not just shady. We've said this a couple of times, but it's not just shady. It totally is shady. It's very, very concerning, right? But with all the talks about like the need for ethics rules at the Supreme Court and stronger ethics rules, like on paper, the rules that are already apply to them, like sure they're kind of weak, but though through Thomas's actions already, they are a violation of the rules already,
Right. And
right?
like the
Except
law,
in
to be
stronger
clear,
ways.
like
Yes.
he's like subject to fines and prison at this point
Right.
based on his
Right.
conduct. So the reporting has just sort of like painted a picture of a justice who is operating outside of the accepted role of a judge, right? And really just like running in moneyed Republican creep circles, right? And if I were to narrate a little bit, being rewarded by those circles for his work on the court, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then in the past month, we've had a couple of developments, like the sort of hot new news. One, Thomas dropped the 2022 financial disclosures, uh, which they did disclose more stuff. You have to hand it to him. He did disclose
Yeah.
more stuff,
Uh-huh.
but they were also sort of like oddly shady. Like he listed gifts as reimbursements, which a couple of sharp-eyed journalists caught, and it's important because like A, they weren't actually all reimbursements, but B, when you are claiming a reimbursement, you don't have to list the dollar value
Right.
because it's just a reimbursement. It's not a gift. And the other shady thing is that he once used Harlan Crow's private jet because it was too icy to drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Just
That's the life. You can call on your bestie's PJ because you don't want to drive that day.
right. Ugh, it looks gross out, Harlan. Can I
Yeah.
just hop in the jet?
Right. Right.
Roads look terrible,
Yeah.
dude. Just
Yeah.
just I'll take the jet if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
And then he did it, right? Like,
And
and
then
then
he did
Harlan
it.
Crow did it. Like that's their relationship. And this is again, like we can't like it's not just that Justice Thomas has friends who are billionaires and who give
Right.
him gifts, right? It's that Harlan Crow. We'll talk about the Koch brothers in just a little bit. Like these people run networks and are on the boards of organizations and fund legal movements, right? That have cases and interests in front of Justice Thomas at the Supreme Court every year.
Right. And the latest piece of reporting, it's sort of almost like it's one of those things where you get this like drip drip drip, and after a while you get a little bit numbed to the news itself. It's like when Trump gets charged with something now, right?
Right,
You're just like mentally you're like, all right, what, it's not like the
right.
first time when it was a bombshell.
You're right.
But when you just sort of analyze this objectively, this feels like it might be the worst in terms of like potential conflict of interest, classic ethical concern stuff, right?
Right,
Um, so ProPublica reported that in 2018, Thomas went to a Koch brothers network fundraiser. The Koch brothers, I always forget which one died, but at the time they were both alive.
right.
Um, they have a network of organizations that does fundraising to the tune of like nearly a billion a year. I think it was like 700 million.
Yeah,
And they have a very secretive event that brings the donors in. They will like rent out entire hotels so that no one can, like, no reporters can slip in and eavesdrop.
right.
It's all very carefully managed, and they solicit funds for their various, like, psychotic right wing projects,
Yes,
mostly business oriented. They're not really culture war guys, the Koch brothers. But we're talking about like the 2017 tax bill. That was like a big Koch brothers win. Um,
yeah, and another thing they do at this event, which is annual, another thing they do at this event is like do like a report card, right? Like how effective has
yeah,
our spending, our network been in changing the law, bringing cases that are important to us, yeah, like getting our interests in front of the Supreme Court. That like it's a fundraising event where they solicit funds, but it's also like look at how effective we are, so give us more money, right? And they
right.
are talking explicitly about how effective they are and their like legal wins.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like it was sort of this like celebration of the project
Yes.
and also a fundraiser at the same time, right? Like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
they want to prove to their donors that the funds are going to good use. Like we're going to turn your money into political victories.
Yep.
So apparently Clarence Thomas spoke there and was like present for much of the event, and we don't know what he said. And
He flew in on a private jet.
he flew in on a private jet, although I
Yeah.
believe that we don't know whose, right?
That's
We do
right.
not know
Yeah.
if it was Harlan Crow's or perhaps just an unrelated private jet, a Koch brothers private
Right.
jet,
Right.
presumably. Um, some sort of highlights from this. One, there's like an initiative that they were launching to get conservatives on the federal bench, and they announced it at the event. And
Right.
the effort is being spearheaded by Ginni Thomas.
Yes. They hire as, or they maybe they present at this event that they have hired, or they really quickly thereafter this event do hire a former employee of Ginni Thomas to lead the get conservatives on the bench effort for the Koch brothers network.
And that's why, you know, it's like that it's just pandering. Because
Yeah.
why would you hire Ginni Thomas, the dumbest
Right.
person on earth,
Right.
to run your political operation, unless it was like a little thanks, Clarence, here's
Right.
money and prestige for your stupid wife.
Right.
Your wife who cannot dress herself in the morning. We have given her a very prestigious job. And
Right.
Clarence is like, thanks, I'll speak at the event. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a prestigious job politically influencing the branch, the supposedly apolitical branch of government that your husband sort of leads, right?
That
Like,
right, that your husband is like at the
sits atop.
apex of,
Right,
right? Like a
right,
symbol of a theoretical, at least, symbol of like the nonpartisan judiciary. And his wife is just out there being like, no, it's partisan. It's
right,
partisan, and
right.
we're getting conservative hacks in.
Yeah, and
Incredible.
I'm getting paid to do the partisan part of it, right?
Right.
Or to be partisan about it.
Yeah. So the Koch organization did give comment, and you know, we're fair and balanced as an organization, for the 5-4 organization. So we
Yeah.
will tell you what they said. They said, quote, the idea that attending a couple events to promote a book or give dinner remarks, as all justices do, could somehow be undue influence just doesn't hold water. Uh, and then later he said Thomas wasn't present for fundraising conversations. Um, Although I feel like when you're at a fundraising event, every conversation is sort of a fundraising conversation,
Right.
you
They're
know?
not right. It's like a whole event that people travel from across the country and all over the world to attend in California every year. It's not like it's not like it's one meeting where they're like pitching like,
Right.
hey, you give us 5, 10, $15. It's not your fucking like NPR local radio station
I mean,
thing,
let's
like
put it
become a
this way.
sustaining member. Like it's not
If
like that.
if
It's a
Thomas
whole
wasn't
weekend.
there to help with the fundraising,
Right.
then why would he be there at all? It's a
Yeah.
fundraiser, right? They think that he would aid, it aids the fundraising to be like, hey, look at this Supreme Court justice that we hold in the palm of our hand.
Right, right.
Uh,
And sources for ProPublica who were at the event, who are part of the Koch network, say like the point is to give big donors access to a Supreme Court
right,
justice. Like it's part of the reward and incentive of donating to our network is that when you come to our events then and you're a big shot member, you get to sit at a table with Clarence Thomas, you're in the room with
right,
Clarence Thomas, you hear Clarence Thomas speak, right? Like it is the whole, it doesn't matter if Clarence Thomas was explicitly like a part of the like a fundraising operations
right.
conversation, right? Like
It,
he's there for fundraising.
it's so annoying that we have to argue about whether this is corruption. Like it's not the most obvious fucking thing in the
Right,
world.
right,
Like any child couldn't piece this together. Like you're there for a fundraiser for these like political organizations that are bringing stuff to the court consistently, that are basically a wing of the Republican Party,
Right.
and we're supposed to just imagine that this isn't outside the bounds of what like a nonpartisan judge is supposed to be doing. That this is just like, oh, giving speeches at our secretive Palm Springs event. Palm Springs, by the way, come on. What is it?
Right.
This fucking marketing conference? Get out of here. You could
Yeah.
do better.
Yeah.
You could do better. Bring him to some weird place in the mountains in Wyoming or whatever, you know?
Right.
I don't get
Right.
it. But the idea that that's the same as like, you know, going to a law school and talking or something, like,
Yeah.
no, like,
Right.
who are we kidding here? Like this,
Exactly.
it's so tedious to listen to their excuses. Um, and
Someone said Ken Burns was there. I hadn't heard that. Is that Ken
yeah,
Burns the documentarian?
there's a picture of him with Ken Burns. It's
Okay.
wild, and Ken Burns has like distanced himself. I'm like, I never, I guess I never realized that Ken Burns was in this game, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And I'm not even sure what to make of it other than like, when you're really into history, you do end up being like a little bit of a Republican freak, right? Like
Right.
it's
Right.
really,
Exactly.
you don't meet a lot of people who just like love talking about World War II,
Right. Unless
who
they're right.
who are like, and by the way, I believe in prison abolition. You know, that's just, those aren't, they're not incompatible, but you just don't see them coinciding.
Totally. Another famous
Oh, so
attendee.
that's correct. You're right. Ken Burns, I believe, was at Bohemian Grove, which we haven't gotten into. I don't think he was at the
Oh.
fundraiser.
Oh.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, that's right.
Um,
So we should segue.
before
Oh,
Bohemian Grove, though, another famous attendee at the Koch network, whatever party that year, Hall of Fame NFL cornerback Deion Sanders,
to a
prime time
threat.
or whatever the fuck he's going by these days.
I mean, look, it's been a big few years for Dion. He's got his thing going at Colorado.
Yep.
You know, obviously rough week over there. If you were following, took a big L to Oregon. Now, apparently, Deion Sanders was involved in some like anti-poverty initiative that the Koch brothers. Yeah, I don't know exactly what was going on, and I refused to look into it, but I assumed that it's not a real anti-poverty.
No way.
Or
It's a
it's
grift.
some like entrepreneurial bullshit, right? Like,
Right.
let's
Right.
turn poor kids into grind set hustlers.
Right.
Some fucking
Right.
nonsense like that.
We're gonna teach them about Bitcoin or something.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Deion Sanders spoke at the event.
Amazing. Good stuff.
Incredible. Incredible. I was just watching his highlight reel a few weeks back. Hard to, I hadn't remembered, but he was a freak. He was a freak athlete, a real
Yeah.
talent. And it's a
No,
shame that he
as a
speaks
Cowboys
at,
fan, he that
yeah,
was
yeah,
a big guy when I was little. Yeah.
right. That makes sense. And yeah, I didn't at the time when I watched him picking off, you know, the great quarterbacks of the mid '90s, think that 20 something years later he would be speaking at a Koch brothers event.
Right.
Um, that's not the direction I saw him headed, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite disappointing. So segueing, you want to talk Bohemian Grove or
Let's talk about a little bit about Bohemian Grove.
okay, before we do that, I'm seeing
Mhm,
so many demands for Petra, for the kitten,
mhm.
for my orange tabby, and she happens to be sleeping peacefully right now and not attacking a piece of furniture or myself. Um, so she's
Wow.
here. There she is. Look at her.
Mm, mhm. Hey,
Look
Petra.
at that. Look at that babe. Um, so she's here.
Incredible.
She's real. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bohemian
a
Grove.
lot of you said Petra's not real. You said that Petra is a figment of Rhiannon's imagination. Not true.
No, yeah, she's definitely real. She scratched the shit out of me last night when I accidentally stepped on her paw. And yeah, no, real effect on my life for sure.
So, yeah, the other part of this ProPublica piece was sort of a bit of an overview of like Clarence Thomas's involvement with Bohemian Grove. which is this creepy literal men's club that gathers every now and then. Is it annual or is it more often than that? I think it might be
Oh,
annual.
I thought it was just like an all men's resort, and then like, but people come and go, but then they
Oh,
have a big
God, I really
thing.
have.
I have
I'm
no
gonna be
idea.
honest. I didn't read the Bohemian Grove part that closely
Well, and who
because,
knows what these freaks are doing, right? Like,
well, Bohemian Grove has been the sort of subject of many conspiracies over the years,
yeah,
and in the in I want to say it first got attention in the 80s. Um, there were like rumors of like weird sex stuff, human sacrifice, shit like that. Shit that's
right,
probably not true, but they do seem to engage in bizarre rituals that don't seem untethered from human sacrifice, you know? It's like this
right.
isn't
It's
human
not that it's
sacrifice shit, but it feels,
unrelated.
yeah,
Yeah,
it feels like we're on a spectrum of like weird stuff that includes human sacrifice.
right,
Um
totally.
and sort of it was made, I think, I don't know if this made it famous, maybe not, but Alex Jones got his fame by infiltrating Bohemian Grove many years
Yeah,
ago and just sort of reporting on it and doing Alex Jones shit, which of course makes it very ironic that he's now just like basically just a Republican with like slightly out there beliefs, who probably thinks Clarence Thomas rocks, and
right.
all of the elite high society freaks who he thought he needed to expose back in the day are now just his friends, now just people he thinks are cool.
Totally. Yeah. hmm Um, so that's all a part of like the Koch network guys, Clarence Thomas, all of these people are basically like the story that's coming together is like all of these people are meeting regularly
Right,
multiple times a year, right? At these sort of secretive and but also incredibly expensive like luxury events, right?
right.
And then for people in our government like Clarence Thomas, then they're turning around and not disclosing any of that on the paperwork that they're supposed to disclose that stuff on.
Yeah, and I mean, the Thomas stuff is at this sort of like, this point where you're just looking at it being like, come on. Like what else needs
Right,
to happen for like someone to take some sort of step towards making this guy's life a little bit more difficult, right? Making
right,
it like a little
right,
bit harder for this shit to happen. I mean, this is someone who's like still misrepresenting shit on his disclosures. Like he's doing it right in front of your stupid
right,
face,
right.
Like
Yeah.
surely we have don't we have any dignity as a society, you know?
No.
Like he's just spitting on us and we're like, well,
Right.
nothing we can do about this.
Yeah. It's so
We're just getting
insulting.
bullied. We're just
Right.
getting bullied by these
Exactly.
lunatics, these
Exactly.
absolute freaks.
And then I
Um,
think
yeah.
well, I was gonna talk about the Koch brothers and this network and the legal network that they fund, um, and how they are bringing a case um, this
What?
term this term that will be in front of Clarence Thomas on an issue that is very important to the conservative legal movement, which is, of course, you know, the administrative state,
Mhm.
and excuse me, and the question in the case is about Chevron deference. We can talk about that more, but this is also an issue. It's just interesting to track this relationship, this personal relationship that Clarence Thomas has with this network, with these billionaires, and then also to track over the development of those relationships, to track the development of Clarence Thomas's jurisprudence on these issues, right? These
Hmm.
issues that are important to his new billionaire friends that he's only accrued since he's been on the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah, but
So
their
part of
friendships are real. Don't disparage them.
oh, they're real.
They feel real feelings toward one another.
Right.
They're
right.
bros.
Yeah, no,
They're just
absolutely.
you ever think they must think to themselves like I'm so lucky to be a Supreme Court justice so that I could have met this billionaire who I really respect and love and whose company I enjoy.
Yeah,
It's just a blessing.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's real in that it's materially beneficial to both of them, right? Like
Mm,
definitely a real relationship. So yeah, so tracking again Clarence Thomas's jurisprudence on something like Chevron deference, which is, you know, this doctrine where um in general, the Supreme Court sort of traditionally has said that when there's a question about what an administrative agency can do, the power of an administrative agency that's been given to that agency by Congress, in general, Chevron deference doctrine says that the Supreme Court will sort of defer to the administrative agency itself in interpreting the power that Congress gave it, right?
right.
Um, Obviously, the conservative legal movement is now trying to completely dismantle Chevron deference, wants the Supreme Court to step in to decrease the power of the administrative state. And like I said, you know, something like 20 years ago, Clarence Thomas wrote multiple times in support of Chevron deference. And
Yeah.
only over the past several years, you know, less than 10 years, just the past decade or so, again, as his relationships have gotten closer to
Yeah.
billionaires and their conservative interests,
It's that fresh
now Clarence
Bohemian
Thomas,
Grove air, you know?
right,
It clears
uh-huh,
the mind.
exactly. He it's a blank slate. His intellect is really tingling.
Mhm.
And so now Clarence Thomas is against Chevron deference and says that it's unconstitutional.
Yeah. Well, look, you're allowed to change your mind. And what's the best reason to change your mind? Because your real friends convince you that you were wrong before.
Right. Uh-huh.
The
That case is
y-
Loper, by the way.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's worth fleshing this out a little bit.
Yeah.
The Koch the Koch network has been advocating about Chevron deference for ages.
Mhm.
It's something where they've had a lot of success in the past few years. Like if you've heard of the major questions doctrine, that's something that's sort of related. And they literally have a case where they are representing the
Yes.
side that wants Chevron deference overturned before the Supreme Court. And
Right.
Clarence Thomas spoke at their fundraising event,
Right.
and he's not gonna recuse. Like there, I would
No.
bet my life savings and not even flinch. He's never gonna recuse. Never
No,
gonna
no way.
recuse.
No way. His wife hired by that network in the past. Um, you know, he and not just speaking at their fundraiser, but showing up at their events, hanging out at Bohemian Grove every year
Yeah.
with them. Yeah, like close personal relationships.
It's I don't even understand what like a conflict of interest is if not this. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it seems like they want to define conflict of interest as basically like I was a lawyer on this team and
Right.
now I'm on the Supreme Court so I can't really hear this case. And
Right.
that's recusal, like that little slice.
Right. Or
Not
some sort of like I was paid to like paid directly to
directly
advocate,
right,
right? Or to like
with like some direct
represent.
tie to the
Yes,
case, right? The
exactly. Yeah,
money is somehow tied to the case.
right,
The real problem for conservatives on this stuff, on conflict of interest stuff, is that conservative money networks are so vast and comprehensive that if they give any ground on conflicts of interest, all of a sudden they have to recuse themselves from fucking everything because the Koch
right,
brothers and I mean the Koch brothers are one organization, but they have their hands in so many different cases. And if you start to take a broad view of recusal, all of a sudden Clarence Thomas can't really hear a ton of cases about like business in America because the
right,
Koch brothers are all up in that shit. You
right.
know, they when you're dedicating $1 billion a year to these causes, it's going to be a lot of different causes, and a lot of those cases are going to make it up to the Supreme Court. And Clarence Thomas needs to like draw a real like aggressive line in the sand. Otherwise, he's fucked. Otherwise, he can't hear any more cases at all.
Right. And we had indication certainly of these kinds of relationships existing. Totally. And like we know when there are sort of more public events, like we know when they're speaking at, whatever organization or, whatever keynote, and it's like, "Ugh, that's kind of shady, right?" Or like that seems a little bit off. But something I feel vindicated on is that we've said on the podcast a lot of times that that the Supreme Court is sort of on another level, separate from the general public. Like when you say this stuff about their participation, their relationships with billionaires to anybody normal on the street, they're like, that sounds really fucked up, right? And the Supreme Court has over the years been, certainly since like Citizens United and just sort of like opening up money in politics, right? In general, and talking about and money being speech, right? The conservatives we've said have like consistently ruled like this in the past like couple of decades for sure, because they see this as normal political activity, right? That like this is how powerful people act. This is a benefit of attaining political power in the United States, in our society. This is completely normal, right? And I feel a little bit vindicated that it's like, yeah, that is exactly what's happening. Like they participate in these networks. And so to them, it's like, how could this be illegal? How could this be bad?
Yeah, and I mean they view it as almost their inheritance, like
Right.
what's the
Yeah.
point
Mm-hmm.
of becoming a Supreme Court justice if you're not gonna bask in the glory of it, right? The vacations, the rich people who want to impress you. Um, to them that's part of the deal. That's what like conservatives believe and how they perceive the world to work and how they think the world should work, right?
Right.
Is
Mm-hmm.
that the successful people accrue money and power and other benefits, and the people who are less successful do not, as like a matter of course. It's because they don't deserve it. They didn't get to where I got, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
part of the philosophy of like I've got mine, right? It's not
Right.
purely selfishness, although that's a big part of it. It's a worldview where they deserve their ill-gotten gains, and that's why they don't believe that corruption is unjust. That's why in every fucking case about corruption that comes before Clarence Thomas, he's got a weird concurrence where he's basically
Right.
like, I don't really think that corruption should be illegal at all, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
unless it's like giant bag of money in exchange for political like legislation, right?
Right. The
Then it's
clearest
not
quid pro
corruption.
quo.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
Just like comically fake, never going to happen quid pro
Exactly.
quo.
Yeah.
Anything short of that, totally fine. That's free speech, baby. Um, and that was a big part of the Koch brothers platform too. They're very active on opposing disclosure requirements for
Mm-hmm.
donors.
Right.
There are a lot of different laws across the country being like, if you're a big, heavy hitting political donor donating more than X amount, you need to publicly report that.
Right.
And rich people do not like that shit. And they say that's a violation of their First Amendment rights to fund
Mm-hmm.
whatever the fuck they want and not be
Yeah.
bothered about it.
Yeah.
That was like on the screen at the Koch brothers event as one of their issues.
Yep.
They care about that stuff, and Clarence Thomas cares about that stuff and has written about that stuff by
That's right.
coincidence.
Yeah.
Also because he was convinced by his friends in good faith.
That's right. Yeah. That case directly about that issue is Americans for Prosperity v. Bonta, which we've done an episode about.
Yeah.
Um, somebody on our Patreon, when we posted the live stream for tonight, asked a question, said, what are the chances of Roberts growing a backbone and forcing Thomas to recuse himself from any cases that he or Ginni have known contacts with?
I
The
will say zero
chances
because
are
Thomas,
zero.
because Roberts cannot do that.
Right.
No one can force Clarence Thomas to recuse. Roberts can make his life difficult by making public statements that would apply pressure.
Sure.
Chance of Roberts doing that, I would say slim because it's a really high risk gamble, right? Like even if you think it's going to work, then you can maybe do it and the court looks better. I don't know if it looks better, but if you do it and Clarence Thomas doesn't even listen to you, then you've lost twice. You've sort of
Right.
made the institution look like it's kind of fraying internally, and you lose the broader battle about like the aesthetics of corruption or whatever. So
Right.
I would be shocked if Roberts actually gets a backbone on this.
I also think like Roberts is one that like the conservatives will publicly criticize, right? When he falls out of line. So if it is viewed that like there is any sort of friction in the like six conservative supermajority right now, and that like Roberts would be the
Yeah.
instigator for any of that friction, right? Republicans certainly, conservatives are not going to be happy about that, and they'll roast him just like they're ready to roast him whenever he does some sort of like tiny, not
Right. Even
fringe
even like a
crazy
little
thing.
bit of like
Right.
center right
Moderation. Yeah.
Mitt Romney Republican sort of
Right.
politicking from Roberts gets outrage from the right. So I doubt he's looking to stick his neck out.
Exactly. Um, so Loper, somebody said in the comments, somebody asked in the chat, and I just wanted to clarify, Loper, that case that's about Chevron deference, is not the fish case.
Right.
Yeah, the fish case is, what is the fish case
I,
name?
I don't remember. Hold on. Let me.
Hold on, I have it up too.
What's the
The
fucking
fish
fish
case.
case?
Somebody in the chat is gonna get there
Yeah.
way faster than me.
Which one of you nerds knows which case is the fish case?
Yeah, somebody in the chat just tell us. Um, the fish case, but the fish case is also about the administrative state, um, but a
It's
different
confusing because you have the fish case, and then you also have the fact that Republican justices
USB
get
addict.
taken. USB addict. You have the fact that Republicans go fishing with billionaires. It's very there's a lot of fishing going on at the Supreme Court these days.
Right.
Um,
It might not be in our
no, I
oh,
remember
somebody's
like
saying is Loper is the fish case. Maybe Loper's the fish case.
Loper is the fish.
I'm
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I took you for I
I'm
assumed that you were
sorry.
right when you said that it wasn't the fish case, and I was like, I kind of thought it was the fish case.
I'm
All right.
sorry. It's the fish case. The one that I'm
This
thinking
is the
about
shit that
now.
Michael would have been all over. This is the shit where Michael would have been like, you
You
fucking
fucking
losers.
idiots.
How is this your job? How are you? And I will say, this is like one part of the cases that I've always been embarrassed about, but I am very capable of like wrapping my mind around like a set of information. You can put a lot of information in front of me, and if you were like, Peter, you have 24 hours to like condense and explain this to me, I can do it
Sure.
really, really well. 2 weeks later, I will not remember any of it. And
30 minutes later for
right, I
me.
mean, but like people will be like, what's your episode about this? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember the
Right.
case names.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Don't
That's not
ask
how.
me what Bennis v. Michigan is about. Don't.
Right. No. And like my brain is good in some ways, but not all the ways. And
Right.
case names is one of the ways in which it's bad. And this is why I can never be a law professor, because some kid will
Right.
be like, "What about Loper?" And I'll be like,
Mhm.
"Don't know what that is. Next question." I don't.
Right. Is that fish or Second
Right.
Amendment?
Walk me through
You're
the
gonna have to
entire case
place
back to
me.
front, and then I will respond.
Right. But I did realize that the name that was like in the back of my head for another big case is Rahimi, and that's
Mm.
the Second Amendment stuff.
Yeah. All right. Before let's talk about Rahimi, because I think it's
Sure.
spicy as hell. But
Yeah.
before we do, I want to talk about my good friend David Latt, who is, for those who don't know, formerly of
Yeah.
Above the
Tell the
Law.
people.
I think, was he one of the founders of Above the Law? I think
I think
so.
so, yeah.
And he's a guy who is in his like mid 40s now, a young go-getter, like SCOTUS clerk turned
Yeah.
blogger,
Yeah.
and now one of the most obnoxious centrists in the game. He wrote a fucking Atlantic piece where the basic thesis was like, Supreme Court corruption hasn't gotten worse, we're just paying more attention to it now. And he gave like a bunch of examples, many of which had some sort of credence. I think if he's basically saying some of this stuff happened before, then I'd say, yeah, that's correct, David. Good point, David.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Those are
Um,
facts.
but if what you're trying to claim is there has been a justice in the last 50 years that's done something like what Clarence Thomas is being accused of, I would say, no, David. That's not correct, David. You're not right, David. There's no one even remotely close. You could say Abe
No.
Fortas, who left the court, by the way, which feels like a material difference, back in like
Mhm.
1968, uh, went beyond what Clarence Thomas did. I'm not even sure that that's necessarily true, but like other than that, you basically have like a couple of justices taking speaker gigs where they shouldn't have, for the most part.
Right.
A little
Yeah,
bit of
yeah.
money, here and there. I'm gonna
Yeah,
read from
like,
his. No,
was
go
it
ahead.
early, like, 2008 or something? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for example, spoke at the Now Legal Defense Fund sort of
Yeah, I think it was even
annual.
earlier than that.
Yeah,
And she defended it to her death, but the Republicans were asking her to recuse from Dobbs. like,
right. Or
um,
from all abortion cases. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it might have even
Mhm.
been earlier than Dobbs.
Right.
So I'm going to read a quick quote from David Latt's piece. He has a co-author, but I don't care about them. I don't remember what their name is. Hyperbolic condemnation of the justices, including calls for impeachment, has the potential to backfire. It makes the justices more defensive, as reflected in a recent Wall Street Journal interview of Justice Samuel Alito, in which he asserted that, quote, no provision in the Constitution gives Congress the authority to regulate the Supreme Court, and less likely to voluntarily adopt an ethics code. So, to be clear, this argument is like, oh, don't make them angry. what if they get mad and then get even worse opinions?
Right.
That's why I'm not allowed to criticize the Supreme Court. Like,
Right.
how is this a real argument, dude? How do you have such a successful career? Why did you survive COVID? Um,
Well, David Latt too, like his bread and butter these days is talking about the need for civil discourse, talking about especially on law school campuses, talking about the need to meet Federalist Society in the middle, right? These
yeah.
debates are important. Um, wrote, I think, in the past year, if not the past couple of years, about sort of supporting this idea that like it's scary to come out as a conservative right now at Yale, right? Those kinds of things, and how that's like, we should be protecting the legal academy from that kind of like culture takeover, right?
Yeah. Oh, I I mean, these people all have like different types of brainworms,
Yeah,
and
brainworms is
it's
right,
important to
David.
realize that David Latt has had a career propped up by like bullshit money. Like, his success with Above the Law was basically creating a gossip blog for big law firms. There's no like, that's not, I mean, it has sort of at times dabbled in real commentary and more now that he's left, but he got rich because they did big law firm gossip, and
Right.
like, and it was like the classic, it's like a product that is elite facing. Elites are the consumers and the producers of it. This is
Right.
someone who has not been like connected to reality since he was a child. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you almost can't blame him, right? It's when Petra scratches you, you're like, well, her brain is telling her to do that.
It's
And
instinct. It's not her fault.
it
Right.
doesn't matter what I say. She's
Right.
operating at a lower wavelength, right?
Right.
There's nothing she
Right.
can do. You can't get mad at her.
Right. Look at her.
You can't get mad at her. No,
Right.
she's cute and it's not her fault. And that's kind of how I feel about David Latt. It's like
That's right. Yes.
you don't know
It's
what you're
just
doing and it's
how he
okay,
was
but
raised.
I do want you to stop. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if there's a way that we can sort of train you, that would
Right.
be great.
Right.
It's
How he
sad.
was raised up in the career. Like that is right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about. I just wanted to say that David Latt's stupid. But
Yeah.
we can talk
Yeah.
about Rahimi. We can take more questions from Patreon.
Oh yeah. Let me see what the other Patreon questions were, and then I'm also gonna move because my laptop's about to die. Hold
Okay.
on.
Someone asked whether David Latt is cute. David Latt's not a bad looking guy. He does. He used to have a headshot with a full open mouth smile, like
Yeah.
which is it
Nobody
does
screenshot
feel
that.
it does feel like the mark of a little baby child. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Mhm.
he's just so excited that someone's taking his picture. Yeah, again, I just don't I don't entirely blame him.
Somebody asked, and this goes to administrative state stuff like coming up at the in this coming term. Somebody said, as painful as it may be, would you be able to go into exactly what is posed by the non-delegation doctrine?
Non-delegation's not really before the court directly
Right.
this term. The idea, a lot of these doctrines and ideas are sort of bouncing around the same basic concept, which is that Congress, the executive, and the judicial branches have designated roles. And a lot of what Congress will do is write a law saying, hey, there should be uh, executive branch action about this. The EPA should
Right.
handle this. The EPA should set rules and guidelines about this. They delegate to administrative agencies that are technically within the executive branch. So the principle behind like non-delegation and a lot of like these other sort of related theories are, well, shouldn't there be limits on how much Congress can delegate? Can they really just delegate everything they want to another branch of government? Is that consistent with like our understanding of separation of powers, or is it not? Um, and conservatives have always said, "Oh no, it's not," because they don't like the administrative state because
Right.
so much of government operation happens through administrative agencies, and they want to kneecap them. It's not much more complicated than that.
Right. They don't want to be regulated. That's it. They don't want their corporations to be regulated.
Yeah.
I'm moving, but I'm here.
All right. I don't have any more David Latt quotes. But
Oh,
I
and is
do.
that it on the non-delegation doctrine? That's kind of it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to dig in. It's too nerdy. I will say my David Latt COVID joke. Early in COVID, David Latt got COVID and like was like on a fucking respirator. And he was like 43, like he was young.
Yeah, he almost died.
And I will it was sort of frightening because like, that was that part when we were all sitting at home being like, is this going to kill me? Or are we
Right.
all going to die? Like what's going
Right.
on? And then you're watching someone who's like young and healthy maybe come close to death and you're like, fuck, it's scary. Um and at the time I realized I had my priorities all fucked. Um I was rooting for David Latt to survive because in my mind he was a symbol of all young gish people in their mid 30s, mid 40s who might get COVID
Right.
and maybe not stave it off with the youthful vigor of like a 20-year-old. You know what I mean? So he was like,
Right.
he was an avatar for me in my mind. And when he pulled through, I was like, nice.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what I get. That's what I get.
Mhm.
Now I have to read these Atlantic pieces. I was being selfish in retrospect.
Well, I do think, I mean, he's always like, he hasn't been David Latt is not like some like, oh, he
I
was
mean,
like
he's
this
not like a demon.
liberal. Well, no, I was gonna say
I see what you're
the other
saying.
way. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like we ever like relied on him to be like some sort
No.
of whatever liberal legal spokesperson or anything like that. But I do think since the COVID recovery that there has been like this shift towards this like radical centrism thing in David Latt. I don't know.
Well, he almost died. He spoke with Satan, and Satan gave him a plan.
That's right. Yeah.
He exited, and he is executing the plan. I mean, you can't blame the guy. Uh, no, I do. I feel like he's got the kind of politics and like legal analysis that just comes from like completely frictionlessly moving from like ages 20 to 40. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Like Harvard law, fancy jobs, nothing ever quite gets in your way. And then you end up with beliefs like that.
Yeah,
It's sad. That's sad, I think.
exactly.
Little cat
Um
brain.
if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Should we talk Rahimi, or do we want to take more Patreon questions?
Um I don't think the rest of the Patreon questions are that good. Sorry.
Rarely are. Rarely are.
But we can do more we can, as questions come in the chat, we can chat Rahimi.
Cool. So
Yeah, go ahead.
so that everyone sort of aware, Rahimi is like the wildest case before the court this term. It's a Second Amendment case, and it's about whether a state can pass a law saying that the perpetrators of domestic violence can be prevented from having a weapon. The current law in the Second Amendment space is based on what's called the history and tradition test, which is something that this court, the Roberts Court, has basically pulled out of thin air to say that you can only pass a law about guns, regulating guns, if we can find a sort of parallel law during the founding era, the time
Right.
when the Second Amendment was passed.
Right.
And so this dude who can't own a gun because he has been convicted of domestic violence basically said there was no law back in the day saying that domestic abusers can't have guns, so can't have one now. Taking the sort of logic of the modern court vis-a-vis the Second Amendment to its natural conclusion, which is just
Right.
like insane places, right? Just like taking the what I think to the court at the time was a measured opinion in Brune, which was the case from last year that struck down New York's gun regulation regime, and bringing its logic to one of the darkest places possible. So I do think that like if I famously hate making predictions because I think it just makes you look stupid. You never know which way these things are going to go. But this seems too crazy. And I know that that's
It's
like
really
naive to
crazy.
say, but I feel like the court can do a lot of PR work by just tossing this guy's claim aside and being like, no, 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 here's some nuance that you missed. Or like, oh, it doesn't need to be that you find an exact identical law. It can be something that you extrapolate from existing laws or whatever. They create some gray area. Like there's room to work with, you know?
Yeah.
I just
I
refuse
also
to
think
believe that
like
John Roberts is a dude who's like managing the optics of the court so aggressively is going to do it.
Right. I also think like even in Bruin when Thomas is saying like there aren't New York style gun licensing regulations at the time the Second Amendment is drafted and ratified. Even those, he goes through like what laws were on the books that sort of that might have criminalized gun possession or whatever, right? Even that sort of historical treatment is completely cherry picked, right? And so I think there's a way to do the same thing, to say they're doing history and tradition, right? But again, to cherry pick laws that show like that might have shown back then that somebody with a criminal history couldn't whatever
Right.
couldn't own a gun or other laws that were definitely on the books that sort of criminalized gun possession in certain circumstances, and they can do the cherry pick history thing, and that's kind of the point of having the cherry pick history analysis, right? Because you can cherry pick and find whatever support you want in history for the desired outcome, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. If they go the crazy way with that one, I don't even know where we go like politically in terms of responding to it. It would be such a crazy outcome that I feel like
It's pretty crazy.
you don't want to say it's too much for this court, but I just don't see the political interest from the right in this, right? They're not like clamoring for this or something. It would be different
Right.
if they were, but they're not.
Right.
It's something that makes them look bad.
Yeah, it's such bad optics. I mean, like, look, I probably live in the most, pro-gun state in terms of laws on the books, right?
Mhm.
One of the most pro-gun states in the country. We don't have, there is no unlawful carrying of a weapon crime anymore in Texas because it's basically never unlawful to have a gun in Texas, right?
Right.
And still, we have the law that if you have been, if you have been accused of, if there is a restraining order, an order of protection, because you've been accused of domestic violence, or if you have been convicted of domestic violence, you cannot own a gun. And that's even in Texas. So
Right.
it's pretty. I don't know. Yeah, it would be really really radical.
Yeah.
Someone asked how many senators are in favor of expanding the court. Um,
3, I think, is the answer
a
to that.
couple, yeah,
It's Ed Markey, uh, Liz Warren, and Tina Smith, I think, are the ones that have sponsored the bill to expand the court. There are a bunch of reps, not that, I mean, not, we're not talking about
right.
a ton here, but there are more representatives who have. I don't think Senator Whitehouse has sponsored it or anything. So I think it's 3. I think it's 3.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Just
And I
south of
just wanted
50.
right. And I just wanted to mention that this question made me think, or reminded me that Ted Cruz, I think today, entered or whatever, put forward, sponsored his bill that sorry, not the bill, but wanting to pass a constitutional amendment to cap the number of Supreme Court justices at 9. He did this last year too.
Yeah.
Obviously, a constitutional amendment is really hard to get, like quite unrealistic. But you do, when people are like, "Oh, I'm scared of expanding the core" or whatever, they wouldn't be Republicans wouldn't be trying to pass a constitutional amendment to keep the court at
Right.
9
Right.
unless court expansion would be a real problem for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Someone asked if Bernie hasn't done it yet. No, I've never seen Bernie talk about it. That's why 5 to 4 is with her. Hillary Clinton,
Hashtag.
who I'm sure supports expanding the court. I would love to just see Hillary Clinton field a question about court expansion in 2016. Like, imagine her vibes. Fetterman, I also haven't seen. I'm not sure that I've seen from Fetterman or Bernie like opposition to this bill, but they certainly aren't sponsoring it that I'm aware of, unless something has changed very recently.
Yeah. Not that I've seen either.
Someone said Feinstein would sign it.
Yeah, put it in
That's
front
right.
of her.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, just put it in front of her.
She would sign the constitutional amendment too. You know, you get it's just whoever gets there first.
Do the laws restricting felons from voting not parallel this? Very good analogy, right? Like there are lots.
Voting is not a constitutional right. That's the material difference,
Right.
and that's the difference to the conservatives, for the record. But
right.
yeah,
But they're all yes, that's absolutely important. But there are a lot of analogies where your criminal history, your conviction record, like absolutely affects like what you can do in lots of areas, right?
Right.
Okay, let's look. A few people are asking for us to talk about Bob Menendez. I don't know a ton about it except for gold bars.
I just think it's cool. If Clarence Thomas is allowed to do what he's doing, then Bob Menendez should be allowed to, smuggle gold bars across the border. I don't remember what he did.
I think Egypt. It was the government of Egypt, maybe. And I when it's gold bars, it's a Middle Eastern government. Sorry.
It's unfortunate that we play ourselves like this. That our people are so transparent. It's like,
right.
welcome to our home. Here's candy that's just pistachios with honey sticking it together,
right.
and here's gold.
Right, the Jordan almond, pistachio and rosewater, and a gold bar.
Here are the finest
hot
spices.
Tea. Yeah, mint tea. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
Here's a small bowl full of saffron that we're not using for anything.
Right.
Yeah. And just so people know, I am Persian, so this is not racist what I'm doing right
and
now.
I'm Palestinian. Right. Yeah. This is two Middle Easterners.
YouTube viewers at home.
No,
this is not racist. This is not racist.
And also nobody in the chat can make these jokes, just Peter and me.
We see anyone making any of the jokes that we just made, you're out. You're out for good.
That's right.
Honey pistachio sounds good. It is pretty good. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not as a child, I just remember being like, the Iranians were like, it's dessert time, and I was like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I could use a Snickers bar,
Right. Yeah.
But as an adult, I'm like, I could use some honey and pistachio and nougat, perhaps. Like,
right. Yeah, it's sort of an adult acquired taste. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It's a culture where the children suffer as a general rule.
Right. All right. What role can state Supreme Courts play in reining in Supreme Court decisions? Can Supreme Court step in to prevent state courts from blocking gerrymandering, etc.?
Yeah. So that's sort of the there is some dispute about the scope of this, but basically in the Allen v. Milligan case, which was a win for the libs, ostensibly, the court sort of like reified part of the holding in Bush v. Gore, which was essentially giving the Supreme Court some level of supremacy over state courts on voting issues, because the federal Constitution gives power to state legislatures to oversee, oversee voting processes for federal elections. So the Supreme Court has sort of, over the course of the last quarter century, acquired some power to overwrite state courts in federal election matters. When it comes to state level gerrymandering, no, but federal gerrymandering, it's whatever they want to do.
Right. I do think that state Supreme Courts, like in general to the first question, I think a lot of people are focused now on state Supreme Courts as a place where, more liberal, more progressive views of the laws can be advanced, especially depending on, certainly depending on what state you're in, right? But that, state constitutions, even in Texas, right? The Texas state constitution asserts rights in many cases in a stronger way than the federal constitution does, right? The federal constitution, we say in the law establishes a floor, and state constitutions can go above that in protecting people's rights in lots of different ways. And so, there's a lot of people, excuse me, there's a lot of people sort of writing in interesting ways about advancing kind of alternative visions of the law and constitutional rights in state Supreme Courts instead of the federal judiciary. How
Someone
can we
asked for
flip
trans
state
rights.
Supreme Courts? Oh,
not from us. No. What?
may we have some? Oh, I just saw the question. That's funny. There is. What's the status of that Sixth Circuit case? I don't remember.
Which one?
About trans rights. Because then that Chris talked about on our term preview.
Yeah. Which one was the Sixth Circuit? They're all blurring in my brain now.
I know. Let's see.
But that was just. I want to say that was just a preliminary injunction, right? Am I wrong?
It was a preliminary injunction against the enforcement of hormone therapy bans, and contained in those bans is gender affirming care for minors, and I don't know what happened with the Sixth Circuit case, but there were a couple of different options.
People are saying it just dropped. Like just dropped.
Oh.
Is that right?
I have no idea.
I'm going to go to the foremost source, Chris Geidner's Twitter feed.
Chris Geidner. Yeah. Check that out. And then somebody said, how can we flip state Supreme Courts? It depends on how your state Supreme Court judges are selected, right? In a lot of states, state judges are elected, right? Mm-hmm. Like people go to the polls and elect them. In some other states, they're appointed by the governor or the legislature. So it really depends, but in general, state Supreme Court judges, state judges in general, sort of, there's more of a, a little bit more like democratic input into how they're selected, than certainly Supreme Court justices.
I'm all right. I'm up on this now. Chris Geidner, unfortunately, seems to be at a play. He posted like a playbill like 2 hours ago, but the ACLU says the Sixth Circuit rejected our request to block Tennessee's ban on gender affirming care for transgender youth. And from what I'm gathering, they are doing the history and tradition argument, not deeply rooted in our nation's history and tradition. So the same argument that was being used to shut down abortion rights in Dobbs. So we are going to be seeing that everywhere, I guess. Just a fucking nightmare that I like to be haunted by this stupid history and tradition shit everywhere we go. From guns to trans rights, please.
Right. And so that means, though, for the Sixth Circuit case to come out like that, I think what I was thinking about is they could have ruled on it this way, or they could have said, we're going to take it en banc. And I think the en banc process would have taken like a few more months. We don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. But since they've ruled this way, it could kind of fast forward things up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could theoretically accept to hear the case this term, right?
Yeah. Which
So
I'm not excited about this.
no,
I think it's there was a time when I would have said, like, I think we've got a shot at the court on these issues, but the way things have been sort of developing politically, I'd be super cynical. It might not be a bad idea. I mean, we might be in a situation where we have sort of nothing to lose soon. But if there's not a circuit split now, there will be. So I'm not really. It's very hard to sort of weigh the benefits of going to the court or not. I feel like that's sort of way over my head. It's just
right.
it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But it does feel like a circuit split doesn't protect a lot of people in a case like this, when what we're mostly talking about is state laws. And like, okay, so let's say the Ninth Circuit sides with trans people. All that does is protect states in the Ninth Circuit, almost all of which would not pass an aggressive law limiting the rights of trans people anyway.
Right.
Although the way things are, like the way the political winds are on this, I don't even know if I want to make that prediction. But
Right.
very hairy stuff, and this is why I am not an appellate litigator. Instead, I just get to cynically comment every time something happens. Much easier.
Right.
Highly recommended.
We get to say, "Oh no, the case is going to the Supreme
Yeah.
Court."
Yeah. I will say that the
Um,
Sixth Circuit said that they were going to do this really quickly, and it took like 3.5 weeks for them to do
yeah,
this history and tradition bullshit. Come on,
right,
you could have
right,
written it in 2 nights. Go fuck yourselves.
exactly. All right, folks.
Yeah,
This has
sorry.
been
Look,
lovely.
sorry about your rights. Obviously, this, our streams are the only streams where you can start them and then lose your rights over the course of them. You know what I mean? And like,
Right,
we'll tell you about it. We'll explain how
right,
it happened. We can't change it, but
exactly.
we will explain what has happened, and then you can be sad but informed,
Right,
which is
right.
our our
We're in
slogan.
it, right? Sad but informed. We're in it together. Yeah,
Someone asked for a Rude
way back.
Tales /5-4 crossover. Don't know what that is, but I will do a DuckTales /5-4 crossover.
Yeah,
Put me
I
in
don't know
touch
what
with
Rude
whoever I
Tales
need to be in
is
touch with.
either. Sad because informed. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every time we do a 5-4 live stream, the counterweight is that you lose a right.
Yeah.
That's that's what
Is it
happens.
worth it? You tell us. You tell us. Weigh in.
Uh,
Yeah,
um,
like and subscribe, folks. And in exchange for liking and subscribing, we will choose one right to restore. Our choice, not yours.
right,
Keep it in
right,
mind.
of course. All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been
Yeah.
fun. I like doing these.
These are fun. And I will say,
Yeah,
we held it together without Michael. We did.
I think so.
Do
Sound up.
we
Do
every now and
comment
then?
about that. We want to be able to show Michael that
Yeah.
the
Everyone say
crowd
that we
loved
did
us.
fine. We were normal. We didn't need help.
Right.
It
Yeah,
only
Rhiannon didn't
went
just drop
south that
off
one
randomly.
time when we forgot about the Haddock case. We forgot that Loper was the Haddock case. That was it.
Right.
Other
Yeah.
than that, those are gaps that we can fill in over time.
Right. Right. Okay. Thanks everybody
right,
for
folks.
hanging out. Yeah.
We
We'll
appreciate
see you
you.
soon.
We'll see you.
Bye.